The hangar went silent the moment the jet refused to wake up. Hundreds of millions of dollars sat motionless on the runway, surrounded by some of the world's most expensive technology, yet none of the executives, engineers, or pilots could make it move. They had laughed at the one man who knew every wire, every engine sound, and every hidden problem inside that aircraft. They told him he was just a mechanic. They refused to pay him what he deserved. But when the entire company stood helpless in front of their broken jet, they realized the truth they had ignored: the man they pushed away was the only person who could bring their dream back to life. Before we begin this emotional story, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and giving people the respect they deserve, make sure to like this video, comment your thoughts, share it with someone who needs inspiration, and subscribe to the channel Beyond Single Dad for more powerful stories. The name of that man was Kellen Voss. He was not the kind of person people noticed when he entered a room. He wore simple clothes, carried an old toolbox, and walked with the quiet confidence of someone who had spent years solving problems nobody else could see. But behind that calm face was a lifetime of sacrifice. Kellen was a single father raising his young son, Micah, after losing his wife years earlier. Every morning before sunrise, he prepared breakfast, packed his son's school bag, and kissed him goodbye before heading to work at the private aviation company where he had spent nearly 2 decades. He was not the CEO. He was not one of the executives wearing expensive suits and making big decisions. He was the man who stayed late when everyone else went home. He was the person called when an aircraft made a strange noise, when an engine failed during testing, or when a problem seemed impossible to fix. Over the years, Kellen had repaired thousands of aircraft systems. He understood machines like they were alive. He could hear a vibration and know something was wrong before a computer could detect it. His hands carried the marks of years of hard work, but those same hands had saved the company millions of dollars. Then came the biggest project in the company's history, rebuilding a private jet that had been damaged during a serious mechanical failure. The aircraft was worth a fortune, and the company's reputation depended on getting it back into the sky. The executives hired teams of specialists, but weeks passed and the jet still had problems. Every test ended with another failure. Engineers looked at reports, ran simulations, and searched for answers. Kellen quietly studied the aircraft and noticed something everyone else missed. There was a tiny inconsistency in the system's response. It was not a major failure on paper, but he knew from experience that it was the reason the jet would never perform correctly. He spent nights inside the hangar, working under bright lights while the world slept. Sometimes he would call home and hear Micah asking when he would come back. Kellen would smile and promise, "Soon, buddy. Daddy just has to finish something important." After months of effort, the impossible happened. The jet came back to life. The engine started smoothly. Every system passed inspection. The aircraft that everyone thought was finished was flying again because of Kellen's dedication. The company celebrated the success with a huge event. Executives stood proudly beside the aircraft, taking credit for the achievement. Kellen waited quietly, believing that after everything he had done, they would finally recognize his work. Instead, the company offered him a small bonus and told him his contract was complete. When Kellen asked about the payment he had been promised for the additional months of emergency work, the manager coldly replied that the company had decided his extra effort was part of his job. Those words hurt more than he expected. He looked back at the jet he had rebuilt, then at the people who were now celebrating without him. For years he had given everything to the company. He had missed birthdays, school events, and precious moments with his son because he believed his work mattered. But now they treated him like he was replaceable. Kellen packed his toolbox, walked through the hangar one final time, and left without saying anything. The executives believed they had saved money. They believed they could simply hire another mechanic if problems appeared again. They were wrong. A few weeks later, the company prepared the jet for its first major flight after the rebuild. Important clients were waiting. The pilots climbed inside. The engines were ready. Then the aircraft refused to start. The technicians checked everything. They followed every procedure. They replaced parts. They ran every diagnostic. Nothing worked. The same people who had ignored Kellen now stood around the aircraft with fear in their eyes. The jet that represented their success was completely silent. One engineer finally admitted something nobody wanted to say. Kellen was the only one who truly understood this aircraft. The company searched everywhere for him. They found him working at a small repair shop, spending more time with his son and living a simpler life. At first, Kellen refused to return. He remembered the moment they dismissed him. He remembered feeling invisible. But then he thought about the aircraft. He thought about the people depending on him. And he thought about the lesson he wanted to teach his son, that helping others was still important, even when others failed to appreciate you. Kellen returned to the hangar. He walked around the jet slowly, listening carefully. Everyone watched as the men they had overlooked examined the machine they could not fix. After a few minutes, he found the issue. A small adjustment that only someone with his experience would recognize. The engine roared back to life. The entire hangar froze. The executives who once ignored him now stood speechless. They finally understood that the true value of a person is not always shown by their title, their clothes, or their position. Sometimes the person holding everything together is the one standing quietly in the background. The company apologized. They paid Kellen what he had earned and offered him a leadership position. But the greatest reward was not the money or the recognition. It was the respect he finally received. Kellen went home that night and hugged Micah tightly. His son looked at him and smiled, knowing his father had proven something important, that hard work, honesty, and kindness always leave a mark. If this story touched your heart, please support this video by liking, sharing, and subscribing to Beyond Single Dad. Your engagement helps us continue sharing stories about courage, family, and second chances. Before the ending, write in the comments, respect the hands that build the impossible. Let us know if you believe people deserve appreciation for the sacrifices nobody sees. Because sometimes the person everyone overlooks is the very person they cannot live without. And sometimes, the quietest person in the room carries the greatest story.